This is a really beautiful birth story with Charlotte that demonstrates such strength during a difficult pregnancy and birth of a child with complex medical needs. Welcome to the All About Pregnancy and Birth podcast. I'm Dr. Nicole Calloway Rankins, a board-certified OBGYN who's been in practice for nearly 15 years. I've had the privilege of helping over 1,000 babies into this world, and I'm here to help you be calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful pregnancy and birth. Quick note, this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Check out the full disclaimer at drnicolerankins.com/disclaimer. Now let's get to it. Hey there, before we dive into the episode, the Birth with Power Pathway launches in May. And if you're getting ready for your hospital birth, you don't want to miss it. It's the updated version of my online birth course designed to get you calm, confident, and empowered. Hop on my email list now at drnicolerankins.com/email to be the first to know when it's live. Hello there. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. This is episode number 202. Whether this is your first time tuning into the podcast or you are a returning listener, I am so glad that you are spending a bit of your time with me today. Pregnancy is supposed to be this wonderful, magical time, but for Charlotte, it was characterized by grief and mourning since they were not sure if her baby would survive after birth. When she was pregnant, their daughter was diagnosed with something called pentology of Cantrell. I'd actually never heard of this before. I had to look it up. It's a collection of 5 congenital midline birth anomalies, happens in about 5.5 in 1 million live births. And her daughter also had tetralogy of Fallot, which is also a rare heart condition that happens about 20,000 births a year. And Charlotte is here to share her story of how she learned about this news just 1 week before the cutoff date to have an abortion. She ultimately chose to carry the pregnancy to term despite knowing the risk and despite not knowing whether or not her baby would survive. Now I'm going to give it away and say that her miracle baby did survive despite being born without a complete sternum, and her heart was partially outside of her chest. She is now a thriving toddler and doing great, although she will always have certain unique health challenges. Charlotte has some truly wise words of advice for anyone who's going through a high-risk pregnancy or facing something that you weren't expecting during your pregnancy. Just really wise words of advice for anyone having a baby. So you are definitely going to learn something from this really powerful episode. Now, Charlotte is actually a member of my online childbirth education class, the Birth Preparation Course. If you're not familiar, the Birth Preparation Course is my signature program that gets you calm, confident, and empowered to have a beautiful birth. Now, although the birth preparation course is not designed for these complex circumstances like this, she actually enrolled in the course before she knew what was going to happen with her pregnancy. One of the great things about the course is that you get lifetime access when you join. So even though for this pregnancy, the content of the course was not quite as applicable, although some parts actually were, for all future pregnancies, she'll have access to any updated content inside of the course, again, for any future pregnancies that she has. And that's the same for anyone who joins the birth preparation course. It's really important to me to give lifetime access so you don't have to keep buying childbirth education over and over again. It's really important and something that you should have nice access to. So you can check out all of the birth preparation course details at drnicolerankins.com/enroll. All right, let's get into the birth story with Charlotte. So Charlotte, thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I'm really grateful and excited that you decided to reach out and share your story because I know it's going to help someone today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Rankins. I'm really thrilled to be here. I've actually been listening to your podcast for a few years. So
Oh, wow.
I've had your voice in my ears so much. I feel like I'm meeting with an old friend. So it's really fun to be talking to you directly like this. And I'm a big fan of your work.
Well, thank you. So why don't you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your family?
Sure. So my name's Charlotte. I live with my husband, Paul, and our daughter, Amaya, in San Diego.
Oh, that's a pretty name.
Thank you. I'm from Seattle originally. I met my husband when we were both living in Washington, D.C., where he's from.
Okay.
We were both doing an AmeriCorps program together.
But now you're a West Coast person.
Yeah, we've been all over. I have my master's degree in nutrition science from Bastyr University in Washington State. And then after I finished my master's program, my husband and I moved to San Diego, where I was placed to do my dietetic internship at the VA hospital in San Diego.
Okay.
So we thought we would just be here for a year, for this program. And then a lot of people just end up staying in San Diego. We have the beach, we got the sunshine. So we ended up liking it, and now we've been here for 4 years.
Okay. All right.
I work as a registered dietitian in a just amazing maternal and child health center. So we have kind of wraparound services there. So I'm on a team where we have, OBs. So we have people getting their prenatal care. We have pediatricians, social services, dental care, dietitians. So
all in the same place?
Yes.
That's really cool.
It's great.
Yes.
It's the way it should be.
I was getting ready to say 100%. So like you can go down the hall to go see the dietitian, or who to refer to.
Exactly. I have, newborns who haven't had their, weight check in a while with their pediatrician. So I can just call my pediatrician friends, so it's a wonderful, wonderful team to be on. Although I am on a family leave right now to take care of my daughter.
Sure.
So I'll get into that more soon.
Yeah.
But I love my job. It's really special to be kind of in the same life stage as my patients too, as my own family has grown recently. So in 2021, we had our beautiful baby daughter, Amaya, and she's 1.5 years old now. And
now we're gonna get into the story of how Amaya came. So let's start off. I always like to talk about, as you know, as a listener, that in order to understand what the birth was like, we got to talk a bit about what the pregnancy was like. And yours is going to be a little bit different for sure. But let's start off with a bigger overview of what was your pregnancy and prenatal care like in general.
I had this kind of unique experience from going to a very, very low risk pregnancy to a very high risk pregnancy kind of overnight. So my pregnancy originally was just so normal, deeply desired.
Right.
We were really ready for a baby.
Right.
I had, pretty bad nausea at first, but
nothing
really an uncomplicated pregnancy.
Right.
I originally started my prenatal care at a group practice where I had seen a nurse practitioner, and so I think she would have been only able to see me up until a certain point in my pregnancy, and then I would switch to one of her colleagues. But I just adored her. We had a good connection, so I was fine with that. It was just a really fun time of life, finding out I was pregnant, and it was the COVID era. So, working in healthcare, I was taking that pretty seriously.
Sure.
But we had a lot of fun doing very elaborate announcements on Zoom for our families, and a lot of my best friends were getting pregnant around the same time, and it was just a nice time of life.
Nice. So then how did things go from low risk to high risk?
Yes. So I was just last night in preparation trying to remember the timeline. So I had been scheduled originally for my anatomy ultrasound in my second trimester. But remember that I work at a maternal and child health center where we have OBs doing ultrasounds. So, I'm kind of a shy person, but one of my coworkers asked one of the doctors if she could scan me at work just to kind of, to see the sex of the baby. Just to check in and see the sex. And I was like, oh, should I wait? But remember, it was the COVID era. My husband wasn't allowed in any of these appointments with me. So I was like, let's just find out. Let's just find out at work where I can have some company. So we all piled into this little patient exam room. Some of my coworkers and myself, and the doctor scanned me, and she told me she was about 90% sure it was a girl.
Okay.
So I was thrilled. I cried, some happy tears.
Right.
And the sex is really not that important to me, but just any little bit of information I could find,
Sure.
right, about this mysterious little creature inside
Sure.
me.
Sure.
So, the doctor was scanning me. I thought I'd be ready to go any minute. But she kept scanning me. Minutes were passing. My coworkers started to trickle out. They had to go back to work. And there was just silence, and the doctor was frowning and silence. And I asked, is everything okay? And gosh, Dr. Ringetz, I don't even remember what she said. Like, I think I blacked out, but obviously there was something wrong with my baby's heart and something pretty severe.
Right.
So I just stumbled out of that room, and like I was in an alternate universe, I just kept seeing my patients the rest of that day.
Oh my God.
My coworkers asked me if I wanted to go home, but I don't know. I don't even know how I was feeling. I just wanted to kind of put my head down and get through the rest of the day.
Right.
And
so you don't even remember the exact word because it just hit you with like what's happening.
I don't remember. I'll have to reach out to that doctor.
No. I mean, I think sometimes that's what happens. In hindsight, I remember when I was told that my daughter had an intestinal malformation on ultrasound. I don't remember what she said. Something about it just like, it just kind of hits you. Yeah. And at that moment, were your coworkers still in the room, or had they all left? Or
I think a few were. Definitely one coworker was who I'm closer to.
Sure.
So, and I'm grateful. I'm so grateful that I wasn't hearing that news alone.
Right.
Like I would have if I had waited for my anatomy
that
ultrasound, right?
That is true. And so she says that, and you hear baby has a heart problem.
A heart problem,
okay.
Yeah. And she didn't know exactly what, right? I do remember, it's funny what you remember, right? I do remember that day my baby had just started to move a lot, and I was feeling her just flip around inside me, just full of life, that day.
Oh my goodness.
I think that experience was a little traumatic for everyone. In hindsight, maybe don't get an ultrasound at work, but
you didn't know. I mean,
you didn't know.
I mean, you had no idea, and you think it's going to be a fun moment.
Exactly.
I think I've seen lots of times like the nurses at work, and we'll hop in a room and do an ultrasound. It's something that happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And it's crazy the way it all works out, because my prenatal care, I was actually able to transfer immediately to that doctor who scanned me.
Oh.
So she only came to our clinic once a week, and then the rest of the time she worked at her own group practice.
Okay.
She's a maternal fetal medicine specialist.
Right.
So I just had the relationship with her. I transferred my care to her immediately, and everything, the ball kind of got rolling much more quickly than it would have, again, if I had waited for that anatomy ultrasound.
Gotcha. So then what happened next?
So then all the craziness started happening. I went from having monthly appointments to, it felt like almost every day I had an appointment that first week, and weekly appointments. I saw everyone. I got everything done. So I got fetal echocardiograms. I had an amniocentesis. I did have some genetic testing, which I hadn't previously, because my insurance hadn't covered it before, and now it did. I had genetic counseling. I had, biweekly fetal monitoring, and then I actually met with pediatric surgeons.
All within how long?
Not all within that first week, but
still pretty.
Yeah, it was a lot. Yeah,
pretty quickly you got all of the things.
Yeah, so I think after probably the first fetal echocardiogram is when they determined that my daughter did have tetralogy of Fallot, which is one of the more common heart defects. It's a series of internal heart defects, and she also had pentology of Contrail.
I had never heard of that.
That's the one you got to look up, right?
I had never heard of that. So what is that?
So that's a rare, very rare congenital condition that can affect multiple organs, and in the very worst case scenarios, babies are born with their organs outside of their bodies.
Ooh.
So and we were talking about this a little bit. I struggle with how much I want to share about my daughter's conditions, just because I don't know how she'll feel about having her information out there like that when she's older. So I'll just say that we didn't know if these conditions would be compatible with life after she was born, basically.
Right.
In utero, she was doing great. She was thriving, kicking me all the time, because she was getting everything she needed. And I was able to protect her, but no one was quite sure after what would happen after she was born.
Gotcha. So then that brings the question, was there ever a discussion of ending the pregnancy?
Yeah. So, we had a big decision to make, my husband and I. And I do remember quite clearly that when we officially found out about my baby's diagnoses, we had a week before we would hit the legal limit for abortion in the state of California. So we had a big decision to make, and quickly.
Yes.
And let me tell you, just to throw it out there, I am the most pro-choice person on the planet. I believe abortion is healthcare. It's a decision a woman needs to make with her doctor, and the government should have no part in regulating it other than to make it accessible. So just that's where I'm coming from.
Right.
So I was a little surprised at my own reaction then when I started to feel just a little angry, or a little like hints of despair almost, when my own provider started to mention the word termination as a very reasonable option,
Right.
And I had this kind of unreasonable and protective instinct that I wanted to shield my baby even from those conversations. I didn't want her to hear me talking about that. And for a very brief moment I was grieving, I was in this haze almost. For a moment, I questioned if those feelings kind of contradicted my very pro-choice stance. And then it kind of hit me. I was pro-choice, and there I was making a choice for myself and my family. And that choice was right for me. It may not have been right for someone else, and that's okay. And, aside from my really deep intuition that I felt that she would be okay, there were a lot of other factors that made it possible for me to continue with the pregnancy. Like, for example, I'll just list a few, the support of my family, the support of my partner, a stable job, and insurance, and my health, and no other children or caretaking responsibilities. So all these things made it possible for us to, not only make that choice, but commit to raising this girl and loving her for whatever amount of time we had with her, and kind of delving headfirst into the unknown. Right.
I mean, you just make such a beautiful point that it's about you having the choice and not someone else making the choice for you. Because if this happened today and you were in Texas, for instance, you would not have a choice.
Exactly.
And that's the part that I hope people understand, that this is not a decision that anyone takes lightly. You don't come to, like, as you said, you've had some gut reactions that were strong against it. But I agree very deeply that the government has no role in this, as you said, other than to support access, so that people having babies can make the best choices for themselves.
Exactly. And to that point, having it be my decision and my choice was incredibly powerful and kind of fortifying for my spirit for everything that was to come. Being able to say, this is the path that I choose, and not having it be made for me or forced upon me. It really prepared us. My husband was saying it kind of, and it's kind of in the darkest moments we think about that, like, we chose this, and we're grateful for everything that's happened, but it was our choice.
Yeah, absolutely. So then you're about halfway through your pregnancy. You know that you're going to have a baby that needs complex care after birth. So what types of things did you do to prepare, or how did the medical system support you, or did they?
Well, I wish I had done more. I wish I had done more. Well, also, I have to give my previous self a little grace because I was just trying to get through each day, But
sure.
But before I learned about Amaya's conditions, I had bought your birth preparation course, and I was really enjoying it. One of my good friends also bought it, and she was also pregnant at the same time, so we were kind of doing that together.
I love it.
And I hired a doula who was incredible.
So you had hired the doula before you found out about this?
Okay. Yeah, this is my field. I was so excited to be pregnant.
Sure, absolutely.
I just wanted to do everything I could and get ready to kind of have a low intervention vaginal delivery, which is what I assumed I would have. And then when we learned about Amaya, I just kind of stopped with any birth preparation because I was finding it too painful to even contemplate. And then we did learn it would be a C-section. Because Amaya, I'll share, was actually born without a complete sternum. So her heart was unprotected. And after she was born, we saw her heart beating out of her chest, covered by a layer of kind of a membrane. So I know, she's incredible. And let me just tell you, she's doing great. I don't think I've said that. She is thriving. She's on the verge of walking. She's talking. She's just doing so well. So I kind of forgot to mention that, but but at the time we had no idea, right? And anyways, they did want to do a C-section because with her heart exposed like that, they didn't want any pressure on her chest.
Sure.
So after we learned it was a C-section, I was like, okay. So I did watch the C-section parts on your course, and I talked to my doula about C-sections, what to expect. And about the doula, I'll just say I had originally wanted a doula for support during labor, especially as a first-time mom, but she ended up being just the most incredible person to support me through all this hardship, and it was just really nice to have someone very wise to debrief with after these appointments, and also someone who wasn't my husband or my friends or my family.
Someone who's very neutral.
Exactly. So I'm really grateful to her.
Well, that's amazing. That's amazing. Now, when you met, you said you met with did you meet with pediatric cardiologist and pediatric surgeons?
Yes. Yeah. So actually, let me see. We started meeting with a cardiologist when I was pregnant who was doing the fetal echocardiograms. And she is still Amaya's cardiologist.
Aww.
So yeah. So she's seen us through all of this. And I ended up meeting with a pediatric surgeon and also a pediatric cardiothoracic surgeon who would both end up operating on her.
Okay.
I took a tour of the NICU, which I don't know. That was a pretty horrific experience. I think maybe I shouldn't have done that.
The NICU. I mean, I think we're both having a moment of having had a child in the NICU and seeing the other children. I don't know. I'm having a hard time putting into words.
Yeah. It was just checking off things to do, right? I should see this. I should see this. I saw the hospital where I would deliver, and it's right next to the children's hospital.
Okay. I was going to say, because this is going to require some specialized, you don't find pediatric cardiothoracic surgeons everywhere. So
I know.
I mean, did you have to travel any distance, or did you happen to be in an area that had those specialties available?
We just happened to live in this area where we're 25 minutes from this world-renowned children's hospital, and it all seemed to work out, even us moving to San Diego and just where we happen to be right here. And but that is a factor, when we're thinking about if we ever might move in the future, we're not going to be able to move to some small town. We'll have to be living fairly close to a large hospital, for the rest of our life, which is totally fine.
Sure. So was there ever any attention paid to your mental health during this?
Yeah. I did find a therapist who, I actually, again, it was COVID. I did virtual visits with her. Not even that frequently, maybe once every few weeks, but that felt important, again, to have kind of a neutral third party. And I remember you saying when your baby was in the NICU that you gave yourself like a time to cry every day. And that really resonated with me. And that's what I did. Like every day I went to the shower and I knew like, okay, I'm going to cry. And then I'm going to come out of the shower, and the shower is the best place to cry, by the way, because you can just clean up.
Right.
But yeah, that kind of allowed me to just keep, living my life and showing up for the next appointment and showing up to work. I mean, I kept working through this time too. And yeah, I think people were quite concerned, but the attention was all on the baby, as prenatal care is kind of focused, it's on the baby. So I'm really lucky to have kind of, amazing family, amazing friends, really wonderful built-in network that I relied on. But it was a horrible time of life. I was grieving. I was crying every day. I had no idea what to expect. And it was hard. I do remember I really debated on if I should get pregnancy pictures done, which is something I had wanted to do. But I was like, gosh, I feel like I'm in this grieving period. But I ended up doing those pictures. And thank goodness I did, because I treasure those pictures. And I think, even if things hadn't gone the way they did, even if we had lost my baby like we were fearing, I think I still would have treasured those pictures.
Yeah. That's great that you ended up coming to that. Actually, data kind of shows that most people, even when they know that they're going to lose a baby or if the baby passes away, that they actually do appreciate having those photos. They can help in the healing process. Some people think it's like, oh, strange. Why would you want photos of your baby after they pass away? But it can actually be really helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I treasure those. I was just looking at them with my daughter the other day. I was like, there you are in mommy's tummy. And she was like, like not too sure about that. But
I don't know about that. Okay, if you say so, mommy.
It was pretty weird.
Oh, goodness. All right. So you knew that you were going to have a cesarean. You said that you also did a birth plan. So what were some of the things that you put in your birth plan for your cesarean?
Yeah. So we did make a birth plan that our doula helped us write. And that was such an amazing kind of service she provided. I didn't even know where to start. I know there's lots of resources and you have resources, but I, again, just wasn't in the headspace.
And it's different. It's going to be different.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So we included things like, if it's safe and the baby doesn't need immediate support, please let me hold her for as long as possible before she's taken to the NICU.
Sure.
Or we had things like, because we were worried about her survival, please help us with any memory making when she's stable, like making footprints or letting us give her a sponge bath. And then for me, I requested, immediate support, like lactation support. Even though I am actually, I do breastfeeding support at work. I'm a breastfeeding educator, but you still need the support. It doesn't matter. And I was so grateful to the lactation consultants who helped me in the hospital.
Right.
So it also, this is kind of a funny thing. I had requested on my birth plan for only kind of essential talk to take place during my C-section. And that's something my doula had suggested, which is something I never would have thought of. But it sounded reasonable to only have kind of, the necessary chit-chat.
Sure.
And Dr. Rankins, when these doctors were sewing me up after my C-section, after the baby had been taken to the NICU, they just started talking to each other about their weekend plans.
Oh, my God.
But you know what? I was so grateful to have that background noise because it let me know that I was okay. If they had just been sewing silently and I didn't have my baby there, I didn't have my husband there because he went to the NICU.
Right.
I think if it had been silence, I would have been pretty freaked out. So
Gotcha.
It was oddly comforting. So thank goodness they didn't read that part of my birth plan.
Oh, that is funny. That is funny.
And I probably various things on my birth plan didn't really go. I don't know how much they read it. There was a lot going on that day, as you can imagine. But it was really important for me to write and for my husband and I to kind of have that internal clarity about our wishes. Even if it didn't happen 100%.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that for everyone.
So I guess So did the two of you take it upon yourselves to kind of think through different scenarios and what you might want to do or not do and how things transpired? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wanted quality of life for our baby, right? So if they had told us, she would just have a incredibly poor quality of life, then we probably would have made a different decision. It's funny because the doctor who did my amniocentesis, I was talking to her about that. I made that exact point, and this like haunts me because she told me, well, you have to think about what quality of life it would be for a baby to be in the hospital for months at a time. And I was like, oh gosh, you're right. And you know what? Our baby has been in the hospital for months at a time. And actually, most recently, she had a surgery 2 months ago, and her second open heart surgery. And we were in the hospital for 40 days and 40 nights because she did have some post-op complications. And so it's hard, it hasn't, there have been times of her life that have been really challenging. She's been through so much already in her little life. So, but, here she is, like she's in the next room. She's playing with my husband, she's eating, she's going to the park. So I think it's all been worth it. I know it's all been worth it.
Sure.
So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So was your C-section itself pretty straightforward?
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I mean, other than I couldn't stop sobbing, which I wish that I had kind of been able to be a little more stoic, but I had just kind of lost it by that point, and I was crying. And,
you felt how you felt in the moment. It's so everybody, every birth experience, I hope we all give ourselves some grace to, you just feel what you feel in the moment and you go with it. I mean, that was a lot that you had to manage, and everything was kind of like, this was the big moment where you were going to find out, what your baby looked like. So I can totally see that.
But everyone was really kind. I have, really empathetic. We met the NICU resuscitation team. So they were the two people who were going to be in charge that baby made it from the women's hospital to the NICU at the hospital next door.
Right.
And they were just the most kind women I think I have ever met. I've only seen them that one time. I wish I could even remember their names because they were just like angels.
Right.
Yeah. The doctor who did my C-section, I had met him once previously.
Okay.
I had requested to meet him, and he kind of popped out into one of my other appointments, and I just said hi, and he was nice. It's kind of he was nice, and he was talented, and I didn't have like much of a relationship with him, but it's okay. It all seemed to happen pretty quickly.
Gotcha. And were you full term?
Oh, I was 38 weeks.
Okay.
At the very end of my pregnancy, they did diagnose IUGR, intrauterine growth restriction.
Okay.
So she was born small. She was born at 5 pounds. But up until the very end, she had been growing pretty well.
Sure.
So anyways, that's why they wanted to
do it a little
deliver
bit
at
earlier.
38 weeks.
Yeah.
And I was surprised. I know everyone says that you can still feel things when you're getting your C-section done, and I was surprised how much I could feel. Not pain, right? But it just felt like someone's like shaking you. Or
it is a very odd sensation.
It's weird
because
it's very strange.
Things are happening to your body, but you have no. It's like what's going on? Like something's happening.
Yeah. I didn't want to see. I know that's an option for like gentle C-sections to kind of, but I just didn't want to see.
Yeah.
And after the C-section, they took the baby away immediately and kind of checked her out, and my husband was with her, but they did bring her back to me briefly, so she got to lay on my chest for, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. And
okay.
I was like, I wish I had been able to kind of enjoy that moment more,
right.
But I was kind of like, you guys need to get her out of here. Like, you guys need to go make sure she's okay and take her to the NICU. And we have a few photos that my husband snapped where they're just the most horrific photos. I'm just like crying and bright red. But I did get to see her before she was taken away.
Gotcha. And what was your physical recovery like from the C-section?
Yeah, I mean, C-sections are no joke, as we know, as you know. The first day I felt fine, and I was just so happy that first day that my baby had survived, you know, because my worst fear, sorry.
No.
Yeah, my worst fear is that she wouldn't have made it, you know?
Yeah.
So I was just so happy that she had survived her birth and that she was safe in the NICU and she was stable, you know. My husband was over there sending me pictures and sending me videos. So.
Right.
Yeah, so I felt happy that first day, and my mom was with me, and I think I was a little loopy from all the drugs, and I felt fine. I started pumping immediately.
Did you have any challenges with pumping?
Yeah, I think I always had a little bit of an undersupply, and I think the stress really affected me. So that first day I felt good, right? But the second day, then the pain starts to really hit you. I had a really bad reaction to the opioids. I just did not like the way they made me feel at all.
Right.
So I opted for Tylenol and ibuprofen kind of alternating.
Right.
So I just did that, and I was in a lot of pain, and I think that pain affected my milk supply and not being next to my baby, and I was just tired. So I know you're supposed to wake up every 2 or 3 hours and pump, but I just wanted to rest a little bit. And it's not like you're breastfeeding a cuddly baby. It's like, okay, here goes my alarm, and I have to
those things on.
Slap those things on. Yeah. But all that said, I am still pumping a year and a half later.
Look at you.
I know. And my baby breastfed for a while. But then after her first surgery, when she was 2.5 months old, she lost all feeding skills and was fed with exclusively by a feeding tube for a while. And then we had to just focus on kind of her bottle skills.
Right.
I had to fortify my breast milk anyways because she needed more calorie dense.
Yeah.
She needed small volumes and high calories. So I ended up going the route of exclusively pumping, which I never would have imagined for myself. But you know, it is what it is.
Go with the flow, and
yep. And I'm pumping a little bit here and there. I give it to her like a daily little vitamin shot. It feels like. I'm ready to stop. I think I don't know. I don't know why I can't quite let go of it. It's just in my routine now.
Yeah, I mean, plenty of people pump 2 years, 3 years even. So you know, you'll stop when you're ready to stop.
Yeah, exactly.
And how long was she? You said she's been in the hospital a couple of times, but how was it in that initial period of like when you leave the hospital and you leave without your baby?
Yeah, it was horrible, you know, although because we were expecting maybe even the worst case scenario, it also felt good. You know, it felt like, our baby's here, our baby's safe.
Right.
That second day, you know, I said the first day I was feeling good. The second day I started to feel a lot more pain. But the second day I was able to go visit my baby and kind of meet her for the first time. And those two hospitals, the women's hospital and the children's hospital, are right next door. They're only a 10-minute walk if you're walking briskly. But if you're in a wheelchair recovering from a C-section, it took a long time. It took maybe a half an hour to get over there because my husband had to push me just so gently. And I just felt every little bump in the road in that wheelchair.
Right.
And so I was able to start visiting her that second day, but I had to get back to my hospital every 3 hours for my pain medicine, which I really needed. They wouldn't give it to me to take on the road, so I had really brief visits with her. You know, I could be over there for maybe an hour and a half before I had to go back. And the journey over there was really painful physically. So that was really hard. I was feeling really depressed then because I was like, I was weighing the pain of my C-section versus spending an extra hour in the hospital with my baby. And
that I have never thought about that. Wow.
Yeah, I wish maybe I had pressed them more. Like, look, just give me some Tylenol for the road, or maybe I just should have taken
it's
it.
It's Tylenol.
It's Tylenol.
I can go get.
Yeah. I don't know why. I was just worried. I was like, oh, I better get back so they can check me. And
sure. I mean, well, you shouldn't have to press it. I mean, really, we should by default we should be thinking through these things. I don't think these are things that we think through with like in a logical kind of way. Sometimes we're just so like, you have to get the medicine and this and that. And we need to be a bit more flexible about things.
I definitely agree with that. But I think now I would definitely know how to advocate for myself a little bit more. At that time, I really didn't. I was just kind of getting by, but that was hard. So I forget how long I stayed in the hospital, maybe 4 days. And those were horrible 4 days because each day I would go over painfully, try to see my baby, try to breastfeed a little bit, and then just have to go back. And then my husband would stay with my baby, so I was feeling really lonely. I mean, I had some family members come to visit, which was really nice. But yeah, those days really sucked. So your question about leaving the hospital, I was actually so relieved to get out of there and go to my own bed and be at home. And then we could drive to the hospital and I would load up on all my pain medication and snacks and everything. And I would just stay there with her. So it was actually kind of a relief to leave the hospital.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was it like with the NICU staff and the nurses and things like that?
Yeah. The NICU staff are amazing.
I mean, they just are.
They're amazing.
They are just some of the most amazing people.
They're angels.
Yes. NICU nurses are just.
I think it's a calling, really.
I mean, it really, and no shade to neonatologist physicians. I mean, I don't know how it was with you. Like, I would see them for a hot second, but it was those NICU nurses who would really be with you and like, hey, come do this with your baby, or hey, come. So I don't know what your experience was like.
They taught us how to be parents, it felt like, like they taught me how to give my baby a bath for the first time. And I remember my husband and I were being so gentle, like just barely wanting to touch her with the sponge. And the nurse was like, no, get in there, you got to clean your baby. And, all that said, I will say they are human, these nurses, because sometimes we really think they're like superhumans, which they are, but they have multiple patients and they have long hours. I will say, there also is some human error and you do kind of have to watch out for that, and you have to be the advocate for your baby. But it's especially in those first few weeks, they were just incredible. They were so supportive of me breastfeeding, and just I got free meals there because I was breastfeeding. So I just felt like really taken care of by the staff there.
Awesome. So is there anything as we wrap up that you would say about this postpartum period, or since she's been born? I feel like the postpartum actually lasts forever. Like after you have a child, you're forever changed. But 100%. In the first, in these first 18 months of her, you said 18 months, right? Of her her life.
I forget the months, but around that.
Okay. So what, is there anything in particular that stands out for you?
Yeah, gosh, so many things. I mentioned briefly that she just had her second open heart surgery a few months ago, and that is not an experience I would have wished on my worst enemy, because it's so much harder now to have a toddler in the hospital. When she was a tiny baby, she didn't care who was holding her. I mean, she preferred mom probably, but anyone could hold her. Now that she's a year and a half, she wants mom and dad, and she doesn't want anything to do with anyone else. So that it's been traumatic, quite frankly, for our whole family, it's been, and for her. And I think we're going to be helping her to recover from all this medical trauma for a long time. And I just, I guess, my purpose or my goal of going on this podcast was maybe to help any other moms who might be in other situations or similar situations, or anyone going through a high risk pregnancy. So I just, if it's okay, I'll speak right to those high risk pregnancy moms.
Please.
I just want to tell you that you're not alone. Congenital heart disease affects 1 in 100 births, and that's just one of many reasons a pregnancy could be high risk. So you're not alone. I would say, if you have the capacity, try to find people who have been through something similar, even if it's an online community, because no one else is going to understand unless they've been through something similar. So that said, you need to also let your friends and family be there for you, even if they don't fully understand. And, try to find some moments of joy in your pregnancy. Don't feel guilty if you're feeling happy one day. Just let that feeling wash over you. And then finally, you will transform into a stronger version of yourself through this experience, because I certainly have. So even if it feels like you're breaking, you're just getting stronger. It's been the fight of my life advocating for my daughter through my pregnancy and her surgeries, and especially this most recent one, and kind of shepherding her through all her therapies and all these appointments and, things we'll have to deal with that other families don't for the rest of her life. But that experience of kind of, opening my heart enough just to fill her up with enough love to get her through all of this. It's been a great fight. And the thing about great fights is that they're transformational. And I am transformed, into a stronger woman by being her mom and by being her advocate. And I'm stronger for it. And I'm proud of myself and proud of my family. And, whatever happens in your high-risk pregnancy or with your baby, you will be stronger for it.
I love that. Thank you so much. That just touched my heart for sure. And you have touched the heart of someone out there listening as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So where can women connect with you? You can say nowhere if the answer is nowhere.
Yeah. I'm not a big social media person, so I would say my email.
You know what? I don't want you to say it because it'll get scraped by you'll start getting spam because they'll pick up. Yeah. So if anyone wants to contact you, they can message me and we can put you in contact with Charlotte if you're interested.
Absolutely. And then we actually have kept a blog where we write about our experiences with the baby. I would say if you want access to that, you can write me and tell me a little bit about yourself, and then I'll give you the link. So
Okay. Awesome. Well, Charlotte, thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast. I really, really appreciate you sharing your story.
Thank you so much. It was a privilege, and thank you again for all of your work.
Wasn't that a really powerful episode? I'm so grateful that Charlotte reached out to share her birth story and that we were able to share that with you today. Now, after every episode, when I have a guest on, I do something called Dr. Nicole's Notes, which are my top takeaways from the conversation. And here are my Dr. Nicole's Notes from my conversation with Charlotte. I have to emphasize again that the government has no right deciding what you should do about your pregnancy. That is a decision that you should be able to make with the people who are important to you, whether it's your partner or your family, with your doctor. This is not something that the government should be a part of. This is a very personal decision, and the government has no right to be in it. The second thing that I want to point out is she talked about how there's just a lot of attention paid on the baby during pregnancy. And I agree. We don't pay enough attention to the person growing the baby. I have said this before, and I will say it again and again and again. The most important part of having a healthy baby is having a healthy mother, healthy parent, both physically and mentally. So as the saying goes, put your own oxygen mask on. Definitely take care of yourself, whether it is during your pregnancy, after your baby is born. The best way to have a healthy child is to have a healthy mother. So please take the time to take care of yourself. It is not being selfish to put your needs first. You being in a great state, both physically and mentally, is going to be the best thing to help your child be healthy physically and mentally. And then the final thing I'll say is that after we stopped recording, Charlotte mentioned some resources that she really wanted to share that were helpful for her during her pregnancy journey. 2 of them came from episodes of this podcast. One is episode 74 of the podcast with Parajat Deshpande. Parajat helps folks who have high-risk pregnancy. She has a book, and Charlotte ended up reading her book. Her website is parajatdeshpande.com, and we'll drop that link into the show notes, or you can check out the episode of her birth story where she shares her preterm birth. That's episode 74 of the podcast, drnicolerankins.com/episode 74. So it's episode spelled out and then 74. Another resource that she found helpful was episode 76 of the podcast, where I had Dr. Terry Major Kincaid on. She is a neonatologist. And I can't tell you how many people have come back and told me that they found this episode helpful, even though they didn't realize that they would need it at the time. This is a great episode. If there's any suspicion at all that your baby may need to be in the NICU, or even if after your baby, or even if once your baby is in the NICU after birth, pop this episode into your ears. It's just some great questions to ask to help you best advocate for your baby while your baby's in the NICU. That's Dr. Terry Major Kincaid, and her website is drterrymd.com. We'll link that in the show notes, and the episode is episode 76, drnicolerankins.com/episode 76. And then the final thing that she mentioned, a book, which is I'm not familiar with, it's called Like a Mother, and it's written by Angela Garbs. She also found that book helpful as well. And just a description of the book, it's a candid feminist and personal deep dive into the science and culture of pregnancy and motherhood. All right, so there you have it. That's it for this episode. Do me a solid, share it with a friend. Sharing is caring, helps me to reach and serve more folks and live out my passion and purpose of helping pregnant folks have that beautiful birth experience they deserve. Also, subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to me right now. Feel free to leave a review in Apple Podcast. I read those reviews. I love to hear what you think about the show, or you can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm on Instagram at Dr. Nicole Rankins. Let me know what you think. I really, really love it. So many of y'all reach out and send me DMs about specific episodes or the podcast in general. And I mean it when I say it warms my heart. Truly, truly warms my heart. Okay, so that's it for this episode. Do come on back next week, and remember that you deserve a beautiful pregnancy and birth.